All right, recording on StreamYard. All right, recording on the soundboard, and whenever you're ready, Nate.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Tackle and Tacos, a fishing podcast. Episode 80. Already
good number.
80. That is a good, solid, even number. And it, it's got to show some consistency. 80 podcasts in, and
yeah, we've been doing it for a little bit now.
Yeah, feels good for sure. So, I don't know about you, but I'm stoked about this one. We got a
definitely
a local. I'm gonna call him a local legend, although he's not really like of the age of a legend, but
but he's got the stats and the wins and the
he's got the allure for sure.
Yeah,
that's exactly it. He's one of those guys around here in the Quad Cities and really kind of the central Midwest, the Mississippi River area that people know the name. When you say Adam Crigger, everybody knows who that is
for sure.
If they're into the tournament scene. So I'm stoked to get them on. We got a lot to talk about. So why don't you hit us with the good stuff?
Yeah. So I mean, real quick before we get to the good stuff, with Adam, this is like something a couple weeks ago, or actually it's longer than that, a couple months ago, we put on our socials, which all of our socials really quick, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, it's just at Tackle AND, like not a symbol, but like the AND, Tackle and Tacos. We put on our social, like, hey, what kind of shows would you want to see us put out? And a lot of people said, oh, we like hearing about pros, but we also really want to hear the guys who are like on the verge, of going pro, which I think they just kind of meant in a way like local hammers, like dudes who are sticks, dudes who show up to the ramp, and dudes are both like, oh, cool, Adam's here, or dang it, Adam's here, like depending on how you look at it. And sort of like how did they get there? How do you go from fishing to really liking fishing, to trying tournaments, to winning a couple tournaments, to being that dude, being, as the kids say, Nate, he's him. How do you become him?
Absolutely.
And I hate it when they say that crap, man. I'll put the dishes away and I'll tell my wife, like, hey, the dishes are put away, and Dom will be like, you're him. I'm like, shut up, dude. But how do you get there? Like, how do you go from just like, like when we talked to Justin Rowe, who he's him up here, the president of Chippewa Valley Bass Attack. He's a guy who even Pat Schlopper, who's an elite angler, when Justin shows up, he's like, dang it, because he knows how good he is. And if you talk to Justin, it's very much time on the water, practice, figuring out a pattern within a pattern. So if you're on the water for 2 days before a tournament, I'm on the water 5 days. There's no way you can keep up. His is very strategic, and, there's a method. And I want to hear that kind of stuff from Adam. Like, what gets you to the point where you're, winning a lot of tournaments and doing well in a lot of tournaments and Angler of the Years and all that stuff. So, but yeah, as I said, social media, Tackle and Tacos, which is also our website on the World Wide Web. Do you remember, Nate, when this is like years ago? I mean, many, many years ago. I listened to a lot of like talk show, whatever radio, like ESPN radio, political radio. I actually try to listen to both like CNN and Fox News just to get a balance, because nobody's telling it straight, and then you can kind of compare and contrast. Anyway, there's always commercials. And I remember for the longest time, people, when they would say, I don't know, Duke Cannon, like I wish we were sponsored by Duke Cannon because they have the best smelling stuff out there, dude. That new Sawtooth, man, that's the jam. Anywho, at the end of the commercial, it'd be like www.dukecannon.com. And now nobody says like the www. And I just heard a commercial. It was today. I think it was on Fox News. They were like, just look up www. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, dude, it's 2024. You ain't got to hit them with that World Wide Web prefix anymore, man.
Right.
You don't have to And then I used to do this thing where I would say it all like with my tongue sticking out, www.www.com. Anywho, tackleandtacos.com. You don't have to put https semicolon / www. You can just go tackleandtacos.com. You'll find it. We're just getting ready to do a total revamp on the website as far as the design. I've been talking to Eric. We're gonna, I don't know, Black Friday maybe. We're gonna clear out all of our current merch, like put it on like half off, 75% off something, design some new merch, like just revamp and redo everything. Yeah, I'm excited for that. So Nate, you give us some good stuff. Give us some business, some business stuff.
Well, business end of the stuff. Gotta say thanks to the presenting sponsor, Grizzly Coolers, and all their fantastic Grizzly gear over at grizzly.com.
Yeah, you got a good grizzlycoolers.com. You got a good hat on right now. Yeah.
Can you see it? Can
Yeah,
you see
looks
it?
like the Iowa State outline, which makes more sense for you since you live in Iowa and they're built in Iowa.
Built in Iowa, made right there in Decorah for us. So yeah, gotta say thanks to those guys. Of course, code WCB to save 15% off any of your purchases over there at Grizzly Coolers. So thank you to those
honestly,
guys.
Their website too, like real quick, I'm sorry to jump in on everything.
Yeah, no.
Their website's super easy to navigate. And I know that sounds like duh, but that's not the case with every website.
Yeah.
Like you go to some websites and you want to find something, it's actually sort of difficult or there's too much stuff or what. Like the Grizzly Cooler website's just really easy to jump around, from coolers to cups to like the incredible big hunting blinds and all that stuff. It's a pretty dope setup.
Yeah, well put together, and like you said, flows well. Very easy to navigate. So, super dope. And of course, another website that's pretty easy to navigate is hookandarrowsupply.com, where you can get all of your Giltech products. Giltech, the jigs, the swim baits. All the goods. The net heads.
Net heads are so good. Yeah, the net heads are really unique. They're very like similar weight as everybody else, but the actual like head part of it's really, really thin. Like it's really condensed. And so what that does is like it just makes it look like it's just the whatever you're putting on there, just the turd.
The plastic,
the plastic on there, so it doesn't. There's not so much head sticking up. Yeah, it's just kind of a cool design.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of like that, like the finesse jigs we talked about before, with that design where the skirt is actually tied to the head, so it makes it a lot wider, so it really flares.
Really smart.
Super unique design, all hand tied stuff, wire tied. Like the quality is second to none for sure. So go check those guys out. Of course, Working Class Bowhunter and the Working Class Bowhunter Podcast Network. Thank you to those guys. Leopold Optics and our Performance Eyewear. Man, just the best stuff. And go ahead. I think you need to show those off a little bit. Go ahead. Bring them closer.
Yeah,
bring them closer. Come on. Those are the new BX4, right? Binos.
These are the BX4 Pro Guide HD Gen 2 binos from Leupold. They are, without a doubt, easily. And I've never, like I've said it before, I've never really like messed with like really good binos. I've always had like $100 binos and whatever, and that's fine. Like that works great. But these are just next level. I remember when I first started filming snowboarding stuff way back in the day, I had a GoPro 1. And the big issue with a GoPro Hero 1 is that it was atrocious with low light. If you put that thing out in anything but daylight, it was like watching like the back of your eyelids. It was just black. There was nothing there. Cheaper binos don't do a very good job with low light conditions. And very often as we hunt, it's either at dawn or at dusk, which is a low light condition. And these bad boys, it's like, I don't know, they're just crisp, absolutely crisp. And the way you can focus them, like as far to as near, it's insane. They're light, but they're substantial. They come with a really cool pouch. They're absolutely incredible. Best binoculars I've ever used. And Nate, you have some, you just don't have them yet.
I can't wait. I'm ready.
I'm coming down to this weekend. I'll bring them with. I'm just like your pusher man. I brought you some Grizzly stuff. Now I'm gonna bring you some Leupold binos. You know what I'm saying?
Delivery man. Yes.
Yeah, delivery man, I guess.
Yep, I'm good with it. So definitely definitely thanks to those guys, for putting up with us every day, every episode, I guess every week, not every day, but so let's bring the man in. I think we're ready for him.
Let's do it.
Adam, come on in. This guy, like I said, we kind of introduced you a little bit as the local hammer. Anybody who's going to be watching this episode definitely knows who you are.
For sure.
And if they don't, they will for sure. We've got some stats here just from a couple different Derby.
Yeah, give them the stats real quick, and then we'll bring them in. We'll do like a clapping sound effect.
Yeah, but, for sure. So I was kind of blown away by this. One of the bigger trails here in the Quad Cities is going to be Angler's Choice, and they're kind of all over the United States.
Yeah, they're all over,
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. They have a major championship every year. They kind of changed locations a little bit, but a lot of times it's either on Gunnersville or Grand Lake, major fisheries, and they bring in a ton.
Dudes always have that AC logo on the back of their truck. You see that AC with a bass on it. That's somebody who's for real about Derby fishing.
That's exactly it. For kind of a team level tournament trail, they are top notch. I fished a couple of their tournaments, and they're well ran. They do an awesome job, and this guy has fished 130 total events and has been in the top 10 94 times.
That's nonsense.
130 Adam, that's events. That's absolutely crazy. 94 top 10s. I wonder if he even knew that stat. Like that's absolutely bonkers to me. Of those 130 events, we're talking about 19 victories.
Also bananas. That percentage is through the roof. Yeah,
absolutely crazy.
That math ain't math.
Wins, that many top 10s, like it's just wild. So, I think the total earnings was like over $73,000 in a kind of a smaller club level. We're not talking about elite series or MLF or the top tier stuff. We're talking about weekend warriors that get out and fish hard, and this is a club and that does it, and he's a guy that gets after it. So let's bring him in,
ladies and gentlemen. Adam Crigger. Hey,
how's it going, guys?
How are you, brother?
Pretty good.
Yeah,
thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, dude. Thanks for doing it, man. Thanks for being flexible.
Yeah, no problem.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So are you I mean, I know you're a numbers driven guy just based off of like your career, your job and stuff, but were you aware of those stats for your AC stuff?
There's a website that shows them, but don't pay a whole lot of attention to it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I know how many tournaments I've won in my life, and it ain't nowhere near that. It's nowhere near that level of consistency. So that's pretty stinking impressive, man.
And I mean, we were talking about just one. That's just one trail. I mean, Adam, you fish all sorts of stuff around here in the Quad Cities, and even regional stuff that you've won. So impressive resume, already. So that's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. It's a lot to do with, I had great parents growing up. I've been on the water since pretty much in diapers, and I don't know what direction you guys want it to take, but kind of starting out fishing. I had a mom and dad that had us on the water all the time, took family vacations to northern Minnesota. Okay. It evolved to my dad would drop my older brother and I off at Bulger's Hollow boat ramp with his boat. He'd leave and go to work, come back and get us 8 hours later. Told us we could only idle and troll. I mean, we were just teenagers, Nowadays, they might not even let you do that. But you learned how to fish, all sorts of different conditions. You trolled everywhere, so you learned every current, seam, grass, stump, little rock piles here and there. So really a lot of success started, just at a young age, being able to spend a lot of time on the water with my older brother, and then eventually my younger brother as he got older. But just credit to my parents for being an outdoors oriented family and getting us out on the water.
Wow, dude, that's awesome. I love what you just said. I love how you said it. Absolutely. Cause I mean, I'm not that dissimilar from you. I didn't fish as often as you, but my whole world revolved around little fishing trips up to Hayward, Wisconsin. And, and my dad, I'd had a 5-horse motor on an old 16-foot Lund resorter. And, he'd be like, just be safe, keep your life jacket on, don't take it off even when you're fit, like basic stuff. But those moments on the water, that's what ignited my absolute passion, fishing that's never gone away. So that's really neat that your parents did that for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, heck yeah. Let me go ahead, Nate.
I was just going to ask how many brothers do you have? How many, and you guys all are fishing, right?
Yeah, so I have my older brother Scott and younger brother Jacob, and then I have a younger sister Jill who also will fish on family vacations and stuff like that. Doesn't go as much as my two brothers and myself, but big, my two brothers are my, that they're only not brothers, but they're my best friends, and I think that helps too. We've spent hours upon hours on the water together, and then we waterfowl hunt all fall, we ice fish all winter, and then it's right back into not just bass fishing. We're just a fishing family. I mean, we're fishing nuts. We crappie fish, we bluegill fish, we walleye fish. My dad likes to chase muskies around. So I think that helps too with the aspect of not just solely bass fishing, but go do a bunch of different fishing, because you learn different techniques and stuff with all species of fish and fish behavior. And there's lots of similarities between different, they're all predators in their own right. And I think that, doing that and fishing for a bunch of different species of fish has helped even with tournament bass fishing.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as you're saying that, I bet it has, especially now with like, the big movement that started a few years back or whenever it was, but like the BFS and just kind of finesse, smaller Great Lakes finesse stuff. Like there was years, this, Adam, years ago, like if you had a spinning rod out, it was like, what in the world? Like people would make fun of you or call it a fairy wand or whatever else. And now you see dudes like Hackney and like these, Ish Monroe throwing little spinning stuff. And I think if you were really comfortable with spinning stuff for targeting crappies or whatever, you put it in your hands targeting bass, and it's not that different. Smaller lures, on the money casting, and it's kind of transferable, right?
Absolutely. I mean, for the longest time, if I didn't have a flipping stick and a frog rod in my hand, I just felt out of place. But even back then, that was most people's, true, like 100% perception of the way that we fish. And it was accurate to some extent, but then there were times that we'd break out a spinning rod, even 10, 12 years ago and had some success with it. But if I didn't walleye fish or crappie fish at a young age, like I said, I'd credit all that being able to just pick up and do that stuff bass fishing from fishing for those multiple different species since I've been a little kid.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And now, you're an adult, you have your own kids. There's like bass fishing and all that is super fun, but I don't know if there's anything more fun than going after some panfish with your kids, especially with the intention of eating them, bringing them home, filleting them up, like teaching your kids. One of my favorite photos I have with some of my kids, there's a pond in, where is it? It's almost by Sherrard, Illinois, where I have a buddy who owns it, him and his dad, and they were basically asking me to get some of the smaller size largemouth out because it was getting overstocked to the point where it was starting to kill fish. Just, too many fish, not enough oxygen, whatever. And he's like, if you catch any between, I think he said between like 11 and 14 or 11 and 13 or something, like, please take a few of them out. I know you're not a bass killer, but just whatever. I was like, sure. So I took some home one time and I was filleting them up, and there's the funniest picture of me and my boy Vinny filleting him up, and I'm kind of showing him how to come down the spine, and he's making this like face, and then it wasn't like posed, it was just like in the moment he was trying to pay attention, but he was kind of grossed out, and now anytime that we bring fish home, he's like, remember, you got to go right down the spine, kind of stuck with him. And so as a parent, littler fish are super fun to target too.
Yeah, absolutely. I have, like you mentioned, I have 3 kids. My brother has a couple boys as well. And we get them out as much locally here. And then, like I said, a week or 2 during the summer up in northern Minnesota. But I laugh because my middle son, Colin, we had him out just the last couple weekends and started out crappie fishing and doing pretty well on the crappies and going to bring some home to eat. And he likes eating them too. But there's still that part of him. We're like, crappie fishing for a couple hours, doing good with the crappies. Dad, when are we going to bass fish? And
attaboy, okay.
he's ready to grab the spinner bait and crankbait and start chucking for a bass. And so, kids have fun. I encourage all parents to get their kids out. I think it's the best thing as a parent you can do is introduce them to the outdoors. And I think you won't ever regret it, because they're going to be lifelong partners with you out there.
Man, that's it, man. You just said a mouthful, and you couldn't be more right. Absolutely. I mean, I know you take your kids fishing too, Nate.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, he hit it on the head, and and we've said it here in the past too. There's kind of not really a stronger memory made than ones made in the outdoors. Like those are ones that just absolutely stick with you for life. Like it's pretty amazing. So, and some of the pictures that, that Adam posts with his kids and some giant slab crappies, like just huge smiles, like you can just tell they're absolutely loving it. So,
heck yeah,
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I love that. Adam, so real quick, how have you done this year on ducks?
You know, decent enough.
Okay.
It's been kind of an interesting year because it's obviously hasn't been real cold, but
Right.
there has been just kind of a trickle migration going on. So on the days that you get some sunshine and northwest wind, and we've been able to, you know, kind of get a few decent days mixed in there, but I think there's been some bad days as well. But those are the days you choose to not go in the boat blind and go chase crappies or walleyes instead. So
yeah, right on.
Not a banner year, but I've had worse too. Like I said, there has been ducks trickling down, but looking forward to next week when there's a cold front coming for sure.
Yeah, it's so funny how we as outdoorsmen, fishermen, hunters, bird hunters, deer hunters, like we're all so tuned into the weather, you know, because it affects what we do so much. You want to really know what's coming around the corner. Ask somebody who's duck hunting or going after deer or whatever. Are you a big duck eater, Adam?
Yeah, yep. We eat duck, and you know, we pretty much puddle duck hunt, so mainly shoot mallards, some wood ducks, some pintails, some green wing teal. All very good to eat. It's all in how you prepare them, you know, just like a lot of stuff with wild game, but several different ways to make them. Duck fajitas, you know, grilled duck. There's different appetizers to do them. If we get a lot and are tired of eating them the ways I just mentioned, we'll turn them into jerky, but there's a lot of ways to eat it where it's actually pretty good table fare.
Sweet.
What's your go-to then? What's your number one way to eat a duck? Consume the duck.
Consume the duck.
I'll answer that two ways. So it used to be kind of like stripping it out and marinating in olive oil, soy sauce, and honey, and it makes it kind of like a teriyaki, and serving that, you know, like on rice or something. And then we had actually a good friend of ours, Dennis Kays, that we bass fish against. He started waterfowl hunting with us about 10 years ago, probably. And, you know, he was telling us how good, you know, the duck breasts were just on the grill. And I was like, oh, you know, I've always kind of marinated them or wrapped them in bacon with a jalapeno in the middle of them, or, you know, did different stuff like that. And he goes, it's simple. He goes, just take some olive oil, some salt, pepper, and garlic, and just, you know, grill them to medium rare on the grill. And honestly, they're really, really good. They're super tender and not far off of a steak. So
yeah, because they aren't. Yeah, that's one misconception. People who don't know, obviously, don't know, but they're not like a white meat, like a chicken. No. They're more of a red. You know, red meat. The reason I asked if you were a duck eater, I've always wanted to get into duck hunting, but I've only had duck a couple times and didn't like it. And like you said, it's probably just in the way that it was prepared. And so I've always had this sort of like this moral conflict. Like I'm not going to go out there and kill something if I have no intention of eating it. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, though, it seems like such a fun, like different vibe than archery deer hunting, you know, where I'm out in the woods, like freezing my butt off, totally quiet, not moving. And in duck hunting, you're kind of talking to your buddies and you're in the blind, you're having fun, and you quiet down and call them in and whatever once they come overhead. But yeah,
absolutely. We have a blast with the duck hunt, and we're sitting in, you know, even when it's cold, you're sitting in a heated, you know, we hunt out of a boat blind. So we got heaters going. It's pretty comfortable. You're joking around, telling stories about the fishing season, usually with the buddies. And we got a 3-burner stove in the back corner of the boat. So we, you know, cook breakfast, cook lunch. When we've done everything from all the kinds of breakfast food up to we've once a year on somebody's birthday. My younger brother has a birthday in early December every year, right at the end of season. And if it works out right, and all of us end in the boat, we usually do like a pretty big, you know, like steak and hash browns and stuff like that, just to kind of end the season on a high note.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you guys are living the life out there. Sheesh.
Yeah, that's sweet. That sounds like a lot of fun. I've duck hunted a couple times, and it's been quite a few years ago. But it was like one of like kind of like that feeling when you catch like your first muskie and you're like, oh my god, like that was amazing. I need another one. It was very similar to that. Like went out with a couple of buddies, shot some birds, and I'm like, this is it. I went out, I bought decoys, I bought waders, I bought all kinds of stuff, shells out the woo-ya, and just only went once after that. My good buddy ended up moving away, and that was about it. But
took your duck hunting passion with him.
It did, yeah. Because I mean, you need a lot of equipment to really do it right. But man, is it fun? It is really fun. So
you got a dog, Adam? Do you use a dog to hunt?
My older brother has a dog that we hunt with. So he had one that we hunted with for a long time. That one passed away, and then he's got a little pup now that he's getting ready to rock and roll. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Funny thing is, maybe I should get into it, man. Maybe you should come up here, Nate, and hunt in Wisconsin when we'll do some duck hunting. My mom breeds show quality labs, yellow and black labs, and one of her labs, it was named Jetta. If you ever go to like basically any shields across America, if you go into the hunting section, there's a picture of a black lab with, I can't remember if it has a duck in its mouth or like a training decoy in its mouth, but that was one of my mom's dogs, and it's like in all the national like shields, whatever. And so, I mean, and she's still breeding dogs. I mean, I'd have access to like a good dog that I could train up and go do it. Maybe I should mess around and try it sometime.
Yeah, you definitely should.
Yeah, I vote yes as well.
Yeah, maybe, man. I mean, because I love deer hunting, right? But I also get so annoyingly picky. Like, I always pass on so many small bucks, and then I don't have anything, you know? And like, at least with duck hunting, like, you're going to get something at some point. But well, let's go back to fishing stuff, Adam. I want to know for you, I think you did a great job describing sort of your upbringing and how your parents and your family got you into fishing. And I think they did an awesome job. I love the idea of them like giving you the boat and be like, just keep it at idle, you know, like did you keep it at idle? That's the other question.
Oh, absolutely. So it was, my dad had an 18-foot Astro glass bass boat with a 150 on it. And, you know, it was before cell phones even, you know, so, but you know, he knew lots of people around, and, you know, pretty much threatened us where, you know, if I hear you guys are out trying to run this boat around, you know, your privilege is getting taken away. And,
you know, you don't want to lose it.
Like I said, we just, you know, took that to heart, and we'd idle and troll around. You know, back then there was really good water all down in the southern half of Pool 13, and you pretty much could just troll everywhere really and be around fish the whole time. And so we abided by it because we didn't want to lose the opportunity to be out on the water.
Smart man. Yeah, that's a smart man. So you go from that. You said before we brought you on, you said you've been fishing derby since you were like 14-ish. Where did it go from? I mean, are you a naturally competitive person? Where did it go from fishing for funsies into like, how did you hear about tournaments? What made you sign up for tournaments? How did that transition happen?
Yeah. So my dad fished tournaments. He did bass tournaments, but he really did really well in crappie tournaments. Him and my grandpa, they've won crappie tournaments in 4 or 5 different states at the national level. They won several times down on Lake Rathbun in southern Iowa. And kind of, you know, that was kind of going on when I was growing up. And then, you know, seeing him compete and do well, and kind of, you know, feeling that excitement for him when he'd call home when he was out of state and do well, you know. And during that time, my brothers and I, you know, we were all athletes. We played a lot of sports. I played 5 sports in high school, and, you know, super competitive family, super competitive person. And I just think that, you know, being able to, you know, when you're 14, you just thought it was cool to, you know, blast off in a fishing tournament. And then you start weighing in some fish, and, you know, you get your first check or two. And I think really the first time that it really hit home that it was really cool and something I wanted to, you know, continue to do it, you know, as much as I could do, is when I first started, I would go with one of my dad's buddies, and my brother would go with my dad, or we'd switch it up a little bit. But the Children's Therapy Center charity tournament, that is one of the bigger team tournaments around here, especially back then. I mean, it would have well over 100 boats in it. And it was, my brother was 16, I was 15, and you could enter as long as one of you were over 16. And we got in the tournament. We drove our, you know, old rusted out Ford truck and a 14-foot flatboat with a 25-horse tiller handle motor and a back mount trolling motor. And got in that tournament and took, like, I don't remember what place it was, but we got in the top 10. And, you know, just, and I was kind of the first, like, oh, you know, like, we've been fishing our whole life. We can, you know, we can do this. We, you know, so it just kind of went from there to that, to starting to do a few more, then, you know, getting old enough and working, you know, I don't know what most kids' philosophy was back then on what they worked for, but I mean, we went and cut grass, roofed houses, did whatever we could do to make some money to buy our next rod and reel, and then saved up to get our first bass boat together, and kind of been doing that ever since.
Wow. Gosh, I love that, dude. What a cool story. Okay. So how old were you then? Awesome. How old were you when you won your first tournament? Do you remember?
I would have been, when I won my first tournament, I believe I was about 18.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I can't remember. Do you remember, Nate, how old Polinick was when he was on here? Because he had a similar story when he fished his first derby. It was a boat that was worth 45 cents, and the trolling motor was mounted all wonky. And when he turned the trolling motor on, about ripped it off the front of the boat. And I think that's so cool. Like not everybody can be like Trey McKinney or whatever, and no diss to Trey McKinney, but not everybody can go out in a $120,000 bass boat when they're 17 years old. And sometimes you got to cut grass and roof a house and do whatever to earn a boat. But do you remember that, Nate, how old he was? Because he was right in that range.
I want to say he was 15 or 16.
Yeah, he was real little.
He started fishing the Bass Nation stuff pretty young, and that's kind of when he started to really do well. So I want to say he said maybe 15, 16, maybe it was 17, but it was somewhere right around.
But it was with a boat that was worth about $17. And I mean that's it. Like it's so easy, I think, just in general to like you said, you drove up with a rusty old truck, and it's so easy to look around and see some dude with a $160,000 truck and $100,000 boat. But I don't know, especially if you're starting, you don't need that, man. Time on the water and fish hard and have a passion for it. Like you said, sooner or later you'll start cutting a check, and then it's like, oh man, lights go on in your head, and it's just so fun. So let me ask you this, Adam, and Nate, if you want to jump in. I'm sorry, I'm really, my brain's kind of rolling now after that cool story you just told. But what would you say to anybody? Because a lot of people who listen to our podcast are tournament anglers, a lot of local guys, whatever. How do you progress through the steps of tournament angling, from kind of getting in to getting better to winning to getting into harder clubs? How do you progress through that?
Yeah. So I think the first one's, kind of a common sense, obvious one is spend as much time on the water as you can spend. I mean, everyone's life situation's a little different. It changes as you grow older, but I mean, from the time I was in my teens till probably 10, 12 years ago when I started, having kids, and that gets in the way. I mean, I was on the water, whether it was the river, a lake. I mean, like I said, I told the story about us getting dropped off at the river by my dad, but then we also had a farm down the road about 3 miles. We would take 2 rods, put them over our handlebars, have a backpack on our
I remember that.
back,
I
and
do that too.
Go to the pond. And it's just like, at a young age, start there, start simple. You don't need all the fancy, glamorous stuff. Go just learn how to present baits, catch fish. Start there, get comfortable doing that, get in a tournament, and do your own thing when you get in a tournament. Don't worry about who else is in the tournament or how they're catching them or where they're at. You got to figure that out on your own and have confidence yourself to, find a pattern within the pattern. And confidence is the biggest key, to continue success at, a local level or a higher level. For the guys that do that, I'm sure they would say the same thing. But just taking all that and then, taking baby steps, and you start, fishing and doing good. And I think the biggest thing is when you start doing tournaments, you start getting a hunger, or should get a hunger, to fish against, the best competition you can fish against in your area. I mean, my brother and I fish a lot of team tournaments. We kind of chose that path. Both of our jobs and our, just married, have kids. It's kind of out of our cards to, go travel around and do like the Opens or Toyo Series or something like that until our kids get a little older. But we've always tried, when the opportunity presents itself, and either we can get in a bigger team tournament or one of us can get away to, compete in a Bass Open up in La Crosse, or, I did the BFLs this last year, which are, a heck of a group of guys that fish that up in the Great Lakes division. It's, it was a good experience to try to make the regional back here. But I think, once you get so far along, don't be content. Like, even if you start winning small club derbies, like, that's fun and, all great, but you won't make yourself better if you're not willing to keep surrounding yourself by, better competition, better fishermen, better people. And then just to go full circle with that is also surround yourself with, as many good people as you can. Like I said, I have an awesome family that I alluded to with my parents and my grandparents and then my siblings. But then we also have just, I mean, I could probably go through and name them all, but I take too much time of the podcast, but just super good friends that we, would have never met if it wasn't for fishing. And, you
totally.
kind of just get in a circle and, you're talking it out and you kind of learn things from each other. And it's like, do your own thing, get confident, and surround yourself with awesome people.
Yeah. Golly, this dude's a wealth of information. Because I feel like what you're saying is accurate, but it's also sort of like motivational, which a lot of times when people start getting motivational, there's not as much like meat to it, but you're giving really solid sound advice as well. I appreciate that a lot, man. Talk about that wall behind you, would you? Are you a fan of frog fishing, Adam?
Yeah. Have had a lot of success with frogs.
Moly.
With a lot of success with the frogs over the year. We were fortunate at, fairly young age. I mean, it's probably been since around 2006-ish, and we've had a partnership with Spro and Sunline and AFCO recently Beat Down Outdoors, and just the company that reps them has been awesome to us. And, I always enjoyed frog fishing, kind of went through the whole evolution of the frog. When I was younger and we started, frogs were fairly new. There wasn't braided line out hardly yet. I mean, you were throwing it on wimpy rods with, your young kid wimpy rod, 20-pound big game, and
that's
do
it.
your best, and then watch it evolve. And the one thing about a Spro frog, I mean, everyone's probably got their favorite frog. I still the Spro Bronzeye 65. I mean, it's kind of the originator of, everyone's tried to copy it since.
It's such a standard.
Yeah. And they just did an awesome job with it. I mean, it's a good open water frog. It's good in the thick stuff. And we have a lot of them and have went through a lot of them over the years, and just, hopefully they always make them, but if not, I've got a lot of them. So
yeah, you got some backup back there for sure. If you could pick a way to fish, is that your number one favorite?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Frogging and punching, no doubt.
Yeah, so you are Ish Monroe. You're the white Ish Monroe.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's not a bad thing. I mean, I think there's a lot of guys who would say that same thing. But yeah, that's like, I remember the first time I went frogging as a kid. I don't even remember what brand it was, but there was the hookup ratio was like 1 out of 10 fish. But there was this frog, and it was the same thing you're talking about. Wimpy rod. We'd go to like the hardware store and buy like super thick mono that you could get like 80 yards on because it was so heavy. And we had this one frog that when it went on the water, there's these 2 contact points, almost like a Livingston lure or something, that it would croak when it hit the water. Burp, 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 and it would drive. This is like in the 90s, and it would drive the fish crazy. And I'm not exaggerating. You would maybe get a hook set on 1 out of 10 if you were lucky, because that was also the thing back in the day with like scum frogs and like those rats and stuff. They were super soft, but the hookup ratio was bad. They weighed like a 35th of an ounce. You couldn't cast them into the wind. And Spro was sort of like the Apple computers. Like they saw what everybody else was doing, kind of took their time, and then were like, okay, this is how it's supposed to work. It made just like a really usable, smart version of what was kind of already out there. And it, absolutely kind of set the bar.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I didn't mention that, but I mean, the things that make that frog so good is, one, it casts like a sinker through the wind. I mean, you can cast a mile even if you're throwing it right into the wind.
Yep.
And then, like I said, it walks with ease, and like I said, it doesn't have a problem catching it in the thickest stuff either. So kind of a one-shot frog for me, and I had a local outdoor writer about 6-7 years ago wanted to go frog fishing one day with us, and went, and he was actually kind of disappointed because we didn't. He's like, was hoping to see like a bunch of like cool tricks on modifying a frog and stuff. And I mean, there are times that we'll add some weight or rattle or something simple, but
sure,
not that often. I mean, I'm going to take the Spro frog out of the package and don't really modify it ever.
Okay. If you don't want to answer this, you don't have to.
Ask that.
Yeah. Do you bend the hooks up at all, or no? Are you not that guy?
No,
really, not at all. Okay.
Nope. Because actually, I mean, if I do anything, this sounds actually counterproductive, but I actually bend them in instead of out.
Really?
Yeah, because most time around on the river we're fishing lotus pads a lot of times.
Sure.
If I can take my 2 fingers and slide it down each side of the frog, and if that hook sticks me at all, I don't want it on, because more than likely it's going to get caught on a pad or whatever. So I bend them kind of in against the body of the frog so they sit so it's 100% not going to stick on anything.
If you weren't you and you said that, I'd be like, what the heck? This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. You know, because right, I feel like it's so much more normal to bend them up because you get better hook penetration, but you obviously know what you're doing. Nate, talk to Adam about whatever, frogs, whatever. I want to grab a frog out of my boat real quick, Adam. I have a Spro frog from, it has to be like, I don't know when. This thing has to be 16 years old, 18 years old, that I got at a tackle outfitters or something like that in Texas. It's a Spro frog, but it's weird. I'm real curious if you're gonna know what this thing is because I don't know how old it is.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess the question I have is: are you a big like lot of different color frogs, or do you real simple like this color, that color, this color? Like, is it pretty straightforward for you, or will you throw whatever?
Pretty straightforward. I mean, it kind of depends on the circumstance, but keep it fairly simple. Black, white, or some, every now and then I'll throw something brighter if I want to kind of be obnoxious with, if I think they're kind of swatting at a black or a white one. But I just keep it pretty simple. I mean, I've got several color variations, but most of the time, if someone's looking to just get into frog fishing, if you get yourself a couple white ones and a couple black ones, I think that's a pretty good start.
Yeah. Those are two colors that are absolutely hard to beat, for sure. So, I don't even know if I've seen this frog that he's
right,
about
so
to
here it
pull
is.
out
Hold
of this
on.
box here.
I'm guessing it's going to be a Spro jungle frog. It's a Spro jungle frog.
He knew what it was before you even put it on the camera.
So like when I first got that frog, hold on, let me sit back down. When I first got that frog, that was the first like introduction to a Spro frog I'd ever really seen. And I could throw it on a bait caster all of a sudden, because of that big weight in the butt, and like it just took off like a rocket. And I was like, what the heck? And the body was like supple, but it just had these like little curly Q legs, How old are these? Do you know?
Oh, I mean, they're right up. I mean, they're 15 years old, probably, for sure.
Golly.
Yeah, it's pretty neat looking. And if you look at it compared to like a new Spro frog, like the way the hook layout is, it's totally different. They're like kind of how maybe they're like how you like them. Like they're like the hooks are kind of bent in more instead of like out more on the body. But I don't throw it anymore because I'm afraid I might lose it. But it's so cool.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, if you squeeze like a new bronze I-65 and this old one, like the consistency of this plastic is almost identical to this.
Yeah.
And that kind of says something for their quality. If this lure is that old, it would still totally catch fish right now.
Absolutely.
But anyway, right on. Well, thanks for answering my question.
Yeah. And I don't know if you remember, I don't know if you remember this, but I thought you were maybe going to reference, I actually gave your son some Spro frogs about.
Yes.
I think you guys had some boat issues or something, and then got back and your wife was at the ramp, and so I just human nature took over, and I felt kind of bad for your kid. He was bummed out. Like
he was balling.
Fishing. So I let him pick out a few Spro frogs. So hopefully he has them still. And
he does. Yep. So the story really quick is that Vinny and I were fishing it was a Tuesday nighter, wasn't it? Or a Thursday nighter, something like that.
Tuesday.
On the river, and it was on 14. And he was so excited. It was his first tournament ever. He was only 8 at the time. And I thought that was a good one for him. Like it's not a full day tournament. 3 fish derby. And we were not catching fish at all. And then out of desperation, I'm not really revealing any juice here because everybody knows this spot. We ran into Rock Creek at the end of the day, like after everybody else had already probably fished it 15 times. And we mopped up on them using spooks and Mega Bass Dog X, like that top water with the adjustable lip thing on it. And we had the 3 fish we had in the well were all over 3 pounds. And I think the winning weight that day was like 7 pounds. And so we would have absolutely taken it by a good little chunk. And so we're going back to the weigh-in, and we flat out plumb ran out of gas entirely. And I was thinking about going to get gas in the boat before we went. And then we lived in Port Byron at the time, and we used to use the launch at Port Byron. So there was no, it's like a block from our house. And I was like, oh, whatever, we'll be fine. We weren't fine. And so I think he was combination upset about the fact that we were like super late and like he was scared, and really upset that we absolutely would have won the tournament and we didn't because I was too dumb to put gas in the boat. And then he's like on the sideline kind of upset while I'm trying to, my wife drove the truck and the trailer around and I backed it up, put the boat on it. So while I'm doing that, Adam jumps in like awesome dad mode and gives Vinny a bunch. You said a couple. It was actually like 6 or 7 brand new Spro Frogs in the box. And so now anytime that we throw a frog, I'm talking about any time in the past 3 years, we throw a frog, he'll be, hey, remember that one time when that guy gave me all those frogs? And I'm like, yeah, man, of course. So that really made an impact on him, which is awesome. So again, thank you for doing that, man.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to hear he's taking advantage and using them.
He is too. So it's a combination of, remember that time when that guy gave us all those frogs? And I'm always like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, that's the time that we were going to win and you ran out of gas. I'm like, well, you don't have to say that part. You can we can just focus on the positive elements, but thanks, Vinny. But yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. He's got to get that little shot in there for sure.
He does too. And like we were fishing a tournament last year around here on Lake Chautauqua. And we're just sitting around. Whenever I fish a tournament with my kids, I try to get there if I can. I try to get there really early so I can launch and not be in anybody's way because it's just me and them, and they're not going to, I'm not going to ask a 10-year-old to back up the truck or something. And so I get there early, and so usually we end up with a lot of time just kind of sitting around chilling, and we just kind of talk to other guys. He always brings that up. Always. He'll be like, hey, I'm Vinny, I'm only 10. I'm excited to be fishing the tournament. They're like, oh, cool, man. He's like, yeah, a couple of years ago we would have won and my dad ran out of gas. I'm like, will you stop saying that? It's like his go-to conversation starter. Little fart. But anywho. All right, well, let's keep it moving. Where are you trying to go with this, Adam? You made kind of a vague reference to when your kids are getting older. I think you obviously have the stuff. Do you dream of, do you want to go pro in this game at some point?
I mean, if I would, it'd be farther down the road because, I mean, first and foremost, I'm a family guy.
Sure, I love
I'm going to be here for my kids. I don't really have the time to travel currently, but I mean, I'm like anyone else that's ever done it. I mean, I think everyone that's ever fished a tournament has somewhat of an aspiration to eventually make it there. But for the meantime, it's going to be doing kind of what I've been doing, local team stuff. I'll always jump in a Bass Open if it's close enough, like lacrosse or something, and give it a shot. And then, I did the BFLs, made the regional here, and then I'm going to go to the All-American in May down in Lake Hamilton in Arkansas. Potentially going to do the BFLs again. Just don't know. It's just my kids are at the age they're in a lot of sports, and like I said, they're only little for once, and just going to be there to be a dad and fish while I can, but when they get more self-sufficient, have a driver's license, can get themselves around, I'm definitely, would still going to have a fire to eventually try something bigger because, like I said, I mean, my whole life, and my brother would tell you the same thing, within our, restraints of our job and stuff, we've always tried to do, surround ourselves with the best competition and stuff, within a reasonable driving distance of home. And, unfortunately, like lacrosse is still, 4 hours from home. And if it was closer, I would be, the BFLs, I'd definitely do those and some other stuff up that way. It just gets to be where it's, it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday commitment for sure, usually. And if you want to be competitive, probably a little more commitment than that. But the regional was at home this year, and I went and did the 5 BFLs, had mostly just time, just a day of practice, went up practice for a day and got in the Derby, and then, gave it the best shot and was hoping to qualify for the regional and did that, and had a good experience doing it. I had a lot of fun doing that because there is that aspiration of any angler, like I said, and especially myself. I mean, I grew up like everyone else. We went to church on Sunday mornings, rushed home and watched, the Bassmasters that was recorded from, a week or two before. I mean, that was kind of our deal as little kids. And I think everyone that did that and listened to, Bob Cobb and Ray Scott.
Bob Cobb.
Yep. And it just, that fire gets burning inside you. But, like I said, you just get to a point in your life where, you got to put that aside for a little bit and be a dad too. So,
yeah. Well put. Absolutely. If you would walk us through a little bit, Adam, you kind of made reference to it there. What's your, with time constraints, of course, but what's your practice look like if you're practicing, let's say A, on a body of water, and B, on an area that you don't know?
Yeah. So I'll start with, an area that I know. So fortunately, I spent so much time on the water growing up. You know, it really expedites and speeds up the practice on the river of, you know, any of these local river pools. And it's kind of nice because like in the last probably 5-6 years, I mean, we've spent not that much time on the water, and it sounds hypocritical because if you want to be successful, you need to be on the water. But locally, you're able to speed that up off of knowledge because you're not, you know, searching and looking as much. You kind of know the pattern with the time of the year, different areas you've caught them before with certain water levels. I mean, we've got logs of stuff from, you know, doing it. Like I said, I'm going on 25 years of doing tournaments around here.
That's awesome.
And so it speeds that up. So when I'm practicing for a local derby, I'm moving pretty fast. I don't sit still. You know, you don't really want to get seen in certain areas.
Sure.
There's stuff that a lot of times I can even just run the boat by and slow down a little bit and look at it and know with the current seam and how the grass is setting up and stuff that it looks good. A lot of times I won't even pre-fish it. Or I'll stop and maybe make 2-3 casts. If I get a bite, I just leave because, you know, kind of I've known that. So practice goes really fast. You can get a lot accomplished in even just a few hours locally here. When I'm out of town, if it's a river, you know, if it's like up by La Crosse area, fish is pretty similar to back home. The one thing that's different up there than back home here is they're a lot more current oriented up in La Crosse, even though, you know, that area, even the largemouth. I mean, than at home, you know, at home we have a lot of good slack water fishing, and the fish might be on the inside of a current seam where they seem like they like the heavier current up north. But when I'm doing that and it's not local, I still like to move fast, you know, and it depends. It goes back to if you have, how many days do you have, you know, like if you only have a day, you have to go fast, or, you know, I at least think that it's good to go fast. But if I have like 3 days, say, you know, like a bigger event, I'll try to give myself 3 days. That's a good amount of time to pre-fish for something out of town. And the first day, if I have 3 days, the first day, I don't even fish that much. I drive myself, familiarize myself with what stuff looks like, kind of see it, you know, not get spun out and try to cover like the whole lake or, you know, 3 river pools, because you can't do that, but pick a section and then kind of go see it all, and then kind of lay out a plan. And then maybe late that day, I'll fish a little bit, definitely fish the second day. And then the third day, kind of, you know, piece it together and get a plan for tournament day.
Huh. That's very strategic. I like that.
Yeah, it's awesome. I was definitely going to ask, like, if you're kind of like run the gamut of area that you have, or if you're kind of, you know, narrow it down to a section or an area or, you know, whatever. And yeah, you hit on that perfect. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I've always, you know, especially up till the last 4 or 5 years, you know, did a lot of tournaments where once, you know, late May got there was such good weed habitat on the river. You'd find 1 or 2 sweet spots and you could lay on a couple spots all day with a frog and a punching rod and, you know, really maximize your fishing time. I think one thing that's probably made us better anglers has been the force. You know, we've had flooding and stuff starting back in like 2017, 18, 19. I think it forced us to adapt a little bit and, you know, kind of go back to some of those other techniques that we use for other fish to catch fish, because a lot of our weeds have gotten ripped out. And then it's, you know, we've done a lot more of being out in the current and stuff. And we always did some of that back, you know, obviously bass live in current, but the last 4 or 5 years on the river down here locally, and then you saw it even this year as far up as like Pool 9, the grass was so limited that you had to fish for them different ways. And I think that it's good that, in a way, I hate seeing the grass gone, but it has forced us to, you know, get out of your comfort zone and fish a whole tournament day, hopping around fishing stuff that you normally wouldn't probably fish.
Yeah. If you don't have grass, what's the next thing you're looking for? You personally, I mean, what do you like?
On the river? On a river without grass, I like just reading current, finding them on current seams on, and I mean, I know that's kind of a out there, you know, way to put it, because there's current seams all over the place, but, you know, just sand drops and
I was just gonna say, you mean sand drops and
yep.
Yeah, I love that. Like little rock walls and
Yep.
wing dams. And one of the things Nate and I were talking about recently is wing dams. I suppose like anything else, but wing dams, you can really dial in patterns on wing dams. And like if a barge goes through, a lot of times that'll push enough water and that'll push in bait fish, and that wing dam will fire back up that you haven't caught a fish on in an hour. And there's all kinds of little sneaky ways you can kind of get in there and do things that are less typical, I guess you could say.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one thing. I mean, wing dam fishing, I mean, I know it's super popular up north, and then, you know, once you get up to, you know, pools, well, I mean, even from 11 north, it's always been popular, but in the last few years, we've had a lot of low water. And like I said, our weeds are all gone, and, you know, the fish don't die. They go relate to something. And, you know, you learn, I mean, and not every wing dam is good. And you kind of start to learn like how fish set up on the different ones, and what makes a wing dam good, and how to present it, and different tricks and angles to present your bait the way that the bait's getting, you know, that it's naturally flowing over the wing dam. And just like anything, there's little intricacies with it that'll help you get more bites and be successful at it.
Yeah. What's one of your favorite crankbaits to throw? Are you a Spro guy, like a Little John guy, rock crawler?
Yeah.
What do you like chucking?
So Spro's got a really good line of crankbaits as well.
They definitely
do. It's hard to beat a Little John. I'm big fan of their lipless baits, both the Ruku and the Wamiku shad. They're both a little different, but both exceptional lipless baits. And I'm also really like the Fat Papa line of baits.
Sure.
Lane designed them. There's one that's kind of a mid-depth crankbait, and then they have a little Fat Papa square bill, and it's actually a really nice one for the river, because sometimes, you know, your typical like Strike King KVD 1.5s, those style square bills, they dive a little deeper than the Spro Fat Papa square bill, and it's a really nice one. It seems like it only goes 2-3 foot and has a unique wobble, and it's silent, and it's a fish catcher also.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love that. We said we don't keep you like for an hour, so we're getting close to that. So if you want us to shut up, you just tell us at some point. I do want to ask you sort of a nerd question, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, and I'm good on time, so however long you need to go.
Okay, rad.
Here, so
I appreciate that. Will you give us a breakdown of your boat? And I mean, I don't mean like, oh, I got a Skeeter FX20 with a Yami 250 on the back, whatever, but like give us your boat, electronics, trolling motor, why you have it kind of rigged up the way you have it. I love hearing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So we have a Skeeter, have two 8-foot talons on the back of it. I've always been more of a talon person than a power pole or Raptor guy, just because kind of old school. The less things you have to worry about, the better off you are. You know, they don't run on hydraulics. They're fairly simple. Haven't had any problem with them. Generally, when we're using them, we're only in a couple foot of water anyway. We just have two short little 8-footers on each side, so they sit lower than our motor cowling. So if you do get on lakes and stuff where you got to go under, you know, bridges or culverts, you're not worried about, you know, trying to tip the power poles down and worry if they get too wide. So there's lots of, you know, in my opinion, advantages to having those two short talons on the boat. We have hummingbird helixes for mapping, and then you know, kind of the whole forward-facing sonar craze. I do run a Garmin for forward-facing sonar, and so I have that Minn Kota Alltrex, just regular Alltrex. I don't have the new one yet, but I've been in boats with other trolling motors. In my opinion, like if you're going to do the whole forward-facing sonar thing, I think the Alltrex is one of the better ones, just because no sponsorship with them or anything. I just like the way that the head of it's designed, you know, right where it's pointed all the time. I know guys with some of the other brands will, you know, put a little rod stick or something there, but
I hate that. Yeah, I hate that.
We've always liked the Alltrex, but yeah, those are kind of electronics wise what we've got on the boat. And you know, we use the forward facing more on lakes, but we definitely use it to our advantage on the river as well.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I like all that. That's a good breakdown for sure. Are you a lithium or like a standard battery guy? What do you run?
So we still just have regular lead acid batteries.
Mm-hmm.
Probably eventually make the switch to lithium. I mean, I run a lithium battery for my live scope battery. Just, I don't know if it's true or not.
Sure.
Say the picture's more clear. I've always had just small lithium battery to run that, but just regular batteries for the everything else.
So you run like a little like lawnmower battery for your not a lawnmower literally, but that little size, like that little 12-volt guy. Yeah,
yep.
A lot of guys do that. I think it makes a ton of sense for
yep,
sure. And I've heard the same thing.
Because one thing with boats so that's the boat we tournament fish out of, but then my two brothers and myself all have 18-foot flat boats with 60 horses on them and, custom decks. And we fish out of them more than we do our bass boat on the river when we're pre-fishing or just out fun fishing. And it's nice because then I just flip-flop my graphs to the flat boat and take the little battery and pop it out and put it in the one. So it's kind of economical. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's smart. Heck yeah.
Yeah, that is really smart. I like that. Question. Oh, go ahead, Nate, please.
I was just going to ask what graph are you running for the live scope? Which Garmin is it?
I'm not good on the Verson. I just have the Ultra 10. It's the touchscreen one.
Okay, the 10.
Yeah, I forget the number abbreviation for it.
Right.
The 106 SV, I think it is, something like that.
Gotcha.
I just have a 10-inch screen.
Yeah, that's it.
So.
Yeah, Nate and I both run the 930 SV, so it's the same thing, but just the 9-inch version. It works great. Yeah, I honestly think, again, we're not sponsored by any electronics company either. I really think that in terms of forward-facing sonar, Garmin, it's just better. I think Lowrance is not far behind, and I love Minn Kota and Humminbird stuff, but I just don't think Mega Live is the juice. I just don't think it's that good.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what you said. I think what I've seen with my eyes, and again, no sponsorship or anything, but
sure.
Garmin's definitely the best. Lowrance is a fairly close second, and I think unfortunately Hummingbird's got a ways to go yet.
Yeah.
How do you feel about 360? Have you ran that much, or do you
I do. We do have a 360. I love it for structure. Kind of having an issue with ours right now, and it's spinning super slow, but I first had 360 when we went down and fished Gunnersville one year, and just phenomenal for finding structure with it. So, I mean, I know if you talk to a lot of guys that fish lakes all the time, I mean, there's still a lot of guys that will tell you there's a value in having 360 and forward facing running all at the same time.
Yeah, right. For sure. I think that makes a lot of sense. 360 and forward facing. I mean, that's what I have on my boat, but I don't have like Ultra 360. I just have the regular old school 360 on a 9-inch helix. But when you can see where something is, and then you can kind of turn your forward facing towards that thing that you saw on 3, that makes a lot of sense to me for sure.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you your opinion on something. And then Nate, I was thinking maybe we could fire some like sort of not rapid fire, but some like opinion questions at him back and forth here. But we don't have to way open this up, right, at all. But what is some of your opinion on some of the forward facing and rule changes for like NPFL versus bass versus Major League Fishing and forward facing in general? Where do you stand in some of that?
I personally am a person that I think that if you're in a competition, I think that anglers should do a better job of keeping their mouth shut and just fishing. That's my opinion.
Yeah, sure.
There's advantages to people ever since tournament fishing started. You kind of see it at a local level. I mean, a guy can show up in a over $100,000 boat with all the electronics and stuff they have on it, but they'll get mad if a person shows up in a 16-foot flatboat that has a mud motor on it. And it's like, you have over $100,000 boat. Go buy a mud motor boat. And I think
that's a great point. Yeah.
And I don't like that. And I think that, as a tournament angler, I alluded to it before, surround yourself, with good competition and people that are going to push you to, catch the, biggest limit of fish you can under any conditions, and being versatile with that. And I think that, being a fan of, bass fishing, I think it's kind of boring to watch a guy forward facing sonar on the TV, especially when they didn't, ever show their screen. But if they show their screen, you can kind of relate and learn.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Like, I take it as a learning opportunity when I watch it now, when they're showing their screen. Like, you can see it all. You can see how they're presenting the bait, how the fish is reacting. And if you get out of a negative mindset that, this is, boring to watch, you see it happening. I just think that if you take your negative mindset and try to focus on a positive, you're going to do a lot better with it. But I think that with anything, right? Like, you know, side scan, you know, when it first came out, you had like the Kevin Van Dams of the world that were, you know, whizzes with it and were far and above everyone. And I know that forward facing sonar is way more advanced technology than side scan, but you know, there's all these excuses flying around and people like it or don't like it. And they're trying to claim like it's hurting fisheries or, you know, it's going to ruin bass fishing. And I think those are kind of misleading claims because there isn't, it's so new. There's not data with, you know, that proves any of this. Just because someone's catching fish that are out swimming, you know, out in the abyss and they're getting caught and weighed in now, is that hurting a fishery? You know, I don't know. I hope not. But I also think that there's not enough data for the people to, you know, complain as much as they have been about it. I think that the ones complaining about it, if they didn't complain about it and put that effort towards a little bit more positive of an attitude and just worried about fishing, I think they'd probably have more success in what they're doing.
Boom. Dang. That was a good take.
Yeah, that was good. Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I completely agree. And I was just thinking about this while you were talking. It's kind of the first time I put it together in my head. This year, if you're a fan of bass fishing, it's going to be an interesting year, more than even in years past, because you have the NPFL, who I think does an incredible job of running their tournaments. I love hearing Luke Duncan do commentary. They went completely forward-facing sonar ban, done. Major League Fishing did kind of a cool, although the one thing about Major League Fishing is the way they do their tournaments, like the rules and the times has always been sort of complex, and now you're adding to that. But I like the idea of having it sometimes and not having it sometimes. It's going to like show how versatile these anglers are. I think it's going to shut a lot of people up where, oh, they wouldn't catch them if it wasn't for that live scope. Well, now you're going to see these boys are sticks, whether it's scoping or not. And then BASS really, for all intents and purposes, didn't really change a ton as it relates to forward facing. I mean, they did, but I just think this year you're going to really you're going to see a lot of variety out there. And so I think if you're a fan, it's going to be a cool year to watch bass fishing.
Yeah. And I think it'll be cool to watch. And I think it'll be cool to see, you know, which trails still keep the, you know, big fan base following them, because I don't, like I said, I mean, whether you have a hard stance on that you think it shouldn't be allowed, or, you know, open the floodgates and let anything be allowed. I just, like I said, I think that the more you're negative about something, it just weighs you down. And I think it kind of shows. I think some of the people that have complained about it the most have kind of, you know, starting to fall off the tournament scene at the higher levels. And it's kind of sad to see, but it's like they're focusing so much energy on fighting something that's probably not going to go away in its entirety. And I just kind of, like I said, even locally, like the same people that complain about somebody showing up in a little John boat to fish a tournament against guys that, you know, have $100,000 setups. Just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, that is. It's funny too that you say that. I never thought of it like that, because obviously when you think about somebody complaining about forward facing, usually the first person that comes to people's minds is Randy Blockett. You know, he's a stick. Like, he is an absolute stick fisherman. He helped design the freaking Megabass Vision 110. I mean, that's about as like legendary as can be, but the only thing people are knowing him for right now is being a grumpy old curmudgeon, you know what I'm saying? And like, he's done so much more, but like, that's all you think of Randy Blockett, you just think of this crusade against forward facing sonar, which, like you said, kind of sucks, because he's a lot more than that.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think unfortunately for himself and a couple other people, unfortunately, you know, some of the younger generation growing up, you know, they probably don't know who Randy is and what he's done. And they're going to have that negative, you know, take on him just because of that. And it's unfortunate, you know, and I think if there ever is data down the road that it truly shows that it is impacting stuff, hopefully the right changes are made with it. But until then, I think there's a lot of excuses going around. And like I said, I mean, I'm 40 years old, and that's not old. It's not young either, but I've, you know, at first when it came out, it's like, probably not going to be helpful or whatever. And then you get it and you learn fish behavior. And I think, like, you know, you have on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have Rick Clunn that's been around, you know, long as or longer than anyone doing it. And he's said openly many times that he welcomes it and has learned more, you know, that his thoughts were wrong for so many years. And what he's learned in the last few years, you know, being open-minded to it and, you know, going out with some people that are good with it and learning that has been, you know, a learning thing for him that he took and went in stride with it. And I think that that's more of a refreshing take on it, that you should look at it like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Who was it that he said that he bugged about teaching him how to use it again? Do you remember?
I want to say it was Cody Huff.
Yeah, it was Cody Huff. That's right. Cody Huff. Yeah. I always think it's Drew Gill, but I'm like, no, Drew Gill is Major League Fishing, and he might be the best, do you think, forward-facing sonar angler on earth?
Right. Right up there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not, the way he uses it in situations that don't make sense, and he makes it make sense. Like he's a freak. It's kind of like you said, KVD with side imaging back in the day.
Absolutely.
He figured out ways to dial that in that nobody else had even thought of, you know? So yeah. All right, let's end with a few just random sort of get your opinion on some stuff, Nate, and you can just follow along with whatever and jump in however you want, Nate. But Adam, give me one of, and keep the answers if you would, keep them semi-short because we'll kind of go quick. Give me one of your favorite anglers and why.
Greg Hackney.
Okay.
I just like that he's, you know, kind of down to earth and fishes shallow water fisherman and kind of relatable to him.
Yeah,
good personality.
Cool. Yeah, for sure.
Heck yeah. What's one of your favorite jigs?
We make our own. It's a poison
really?
tailhead with a heavy hook in it, and we've just made our own since probably about 20 years ago, and that's the number one jig that we use a bullet head one for swim jig, but for a flipping jig, a poison tailhead with a heavy hook in it.
Huh, that's really cool, man. I've always wanted to get into that, but I feel like I spend so much time with like fishing and hunting stuff that I'd be another way for me to like be distracted, you know, like I'm sure you know who Tom Mansour is, you know, he's Absolutely. A lacrosse legend. And I don't know if you've ever seen like the videos of his house. It's like half trophies, half old lures, and then half lure making stuff, you know, and I don't know. I feel like it just wouldn't be a good deal for me. All right. How about this? This is like a Bassmaster magazine question, but would you rather have small truck, big boat, or big truck, small boat?
Oh, the boat, big boat.
Okay, small truck, big boat.
Yeah, that's
okay. I thought you might go a different direction there because you're talking about the small stuff that you and your brother still fish out of and whatever. But
yeah, I'd like the boat. Spend more time on the water in the boat.
I agree. Yeah, it is. It's funny. Like sometimes I feel like I'm being bougie when I fish out of my boat. I mean, my boat's a 16 Legend V20. You know, it's not like a brand new boat, but with the giant tackle storage and the huge front deck, you just kind of get used to it. You know?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so one or the other, spinnerbait or chatterbait?
Ooh, good one.
Spinnerbait.
Wow. Okay.
Old school spinnerbait.
Yeah, I feel like everybody else said chatter.
Yep.
Yeah. I feel like that like the spinnerbait, like I said, it's kind of the lost art of the spinnerbait, and I've thrown it a lot this year. It still catches fish. It's fun to catch them too.
Yeah. Top water, walking bait or like a plopper style bait?
Walking bait.
Okay. Yeah. Why is that? Is there one you prefer?
You know, I grew up throwing Zara spooks. The Strike King Sexy Dog's a good one, and then recently Spro came out with a walking hate, and it's a pretty good one too.
Okay.
This last year is the first year I'd thrown that, and all three are good. They're kind of unique in their own ways, but like the big super spook, if there's more chop on the water because it's you know sits lower in the water, creates a lot of noise, it's calmer. One of the other two are better.
Okay, sweet. I like it.
Would you rather flip with braid or fluoro?
Braid.
Man.
Braid. Why?
Yep. I just have done it my whole life and haven't been so, and it kind of goes back to, again, if you're on the lake or a river. I mean, obviously if I'm somewhere where there's super clear water, I'm going to go with fluoro, but if 90% of the time, or even closer to 100% of the time on the river, even as far up in the northern pools where it is clean, I've never seen it make a difference. I really haven't. I've had people in the boat with me and they swear that the fluorocarbon gets more bites, and I don't know. I'm a braid guy. Flip 60-pound braid.
Yeah, and that sound too, man. The sound of laying the wood to one and braid. that creaking. Oh my gosh, it's like a drug. It's the best feeling, the best sound. Okay, I like that. Let's change topics real quick, and then we'll let you get out of here. We'll go personal. If you could only choose one style of food to have for the rest of your life, so like Italian, Mexican, American, Chinese, barbecue, I don't know, whatever. What would you choose?
American. Just give me a good steak.
Yes, sir. My man. Yeah, I agree with you on a lot of stuff, Adam. I like it.
All steak and potatoes.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yep.
I want to go back to fishing. I gotta go back to fishing.
I'm just throwing random stuff.
Would you rather fish in heavy wind or heavy rain?
Neither.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah.
Man, I'll go with the wind.
Okay.
I'll go with the wind. Lesser of two evils.
Yeah, why? Why wind?
I just think that the rain, I'm not a big rain guy. I know that some people really enjoy it, but I like more stable weather, and I just feel like wind, you can make it work somewhere on any body of water you're at. I mean, sometimes wind on lakes is a good thing. It creates current. If it's on the river, there's usually somewhere you can get out of it and enjoy your day still.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can always find a little cove or a little creek arm or something to kind of get away from it. Or you could be like me and Nate on some tournament days and be like, hey, that's a wind-blown shoreline, and go fish the hard stuff and just bounce up and down like a couple of morons out there. Yeah. You just gotta get tough, I guess. Like that where was it last year where Zaldane was fishing and he was out in the was that on Champlain? Where like his whole boat was just like, and he's out there trying to spot lock and like this. I mean, the whole thing was coming down like a tomahawk chop, and I mean, just in and out of the water. But all right, so if you could pick one of the three, NPFL, Major League Fishing, or BASS, to be pro in tomorrow, what would you pick and why?
BASS. I just think it's what I grew up watching. I think it has just the most tradition and history with it. For the most part, I agree with their stance on most issues that come up. And I think like anyone that grew up that's around my age or even a little older, everyone wanted to make the Bassmaster Classic and compete against your idols that you saw on TV.
Yeah. Dang, that was a good answer, because I think I'm in the exact same boat. I mean, I think all three are awesome, honestly. But yeah, you throw in the Bassmaster Classic if anybody's on the fence, and that just takes it home, right?
Agree.
Yeah. What do you got, Nate? Let's close with one more, and then we'll let Adam get out of here.
Man, one more. I'm trying to think. I kind of lost him here.
Adam, what's one of your favorite movies? Totally random.
There we go.
Oh, I'm not a huge movie person, but I would have to go with Grumpy and Grumpier Old Men.
Dude, those are like my favorites, man. I have those on my Apple TV app on our smart TVs, and if my wife and I are like laying in bed and we're just tired and kind of out of it or whatever, and we don't want to scroll through Netflix, don't want to look through Disney Plus, don't want to whatever, she'll be like, just play one of the Grumpy Old Men movies. And I'm like, that's why I love you, dude. I love those movies. Yeah, they're so good. That was a good answer. Yeah. Nate, you got one more or no?
I got one. I figured.
All right, let's go.
We probably should close on it. All right. Well, what is your favorite taco topping?
Oof, good one.
Taco topping.
Or duck fajita topping.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm pretty boring when it comes to tacos. I would say like red and yellow peppers and just meat and cheese. I'm like pretty boring. Like
that's not boring at all. But that's what everybody says. But it's so good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if you went to like a Super Bowl party or a Bassmaster Classic party or something, and they were making like just meat and cheese tacos and had some like peppers and salsa or whatever cheese for topping, you wouldn't be like, oh, this sucks. You'd be like, great. You'd be happy as a clam.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, Adam, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for taking the time to jump on. We've been trying to line this up for a while. I know you had to back out once. We had to back out once. And then I was like, oh, can you jump on tonight? And you were like, no. And then you're like, what about tomorrow? And I was like, let's do it. Yeah. So I honestly feel like that's probably the hardest part about having a podcast is scheduling people, because you have a life and then we have lives and whatever. But thanks for being flexible and jumping on. I think you did an awesome job. And this is one of my favorites from a long time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate it, and always enjoy talking fishing.
Absolutely. All right, brother. You can go ahead and jump off. Thank you for taking the time, man.
All right. Have a good night.
All right. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. That was Adam Adam Crigger, Adam, the absolute fish, monster, Mississippi boogeyman. People are scared of him when he shows up at the ramp. What a cool dude.
Yeah. As the Mr. Zona would say, absolute stud.
I mean, stood on it. A fence panda, a swamp donkey. Yeah, Adam is absolutely that dude.
Yeah,
he's that dude. That when he shows up at the ramp, it's a combination of people being like, "Oh, cool, Adam's here," and also like, "Oh, crap," because he's a stick. He fishes hard. He's been fishing with a lot of experience, you know, and that's one of the things. When we have our buddy Lonnie coming on soon, who is just an absolute mega hammer up here in the Northwoods, you know, you just can't beat time on the water, whether that's old experience or a lot of practice or a combination of the two. And that's what Adam absolutely excels at. He's got experience and like his sort of systematic approach he gave us on his practice days. You combine years of experience with a like A plus B equals C systematic approach to practice. Like, good luck beating that guy.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. And one thing I don't know if you picked up on it or not, but the cat is humble as all get
very
out.
humble, very humble,
like extremely humble.
What did he finish in that BFL and that one in the Quad Cities? Second.
It's my exact point.
I mean,
he mentioned, you know, he fished the BFLs this year, so he had a chance to make the regionals. Well, in those BFLs, he had a top 10 against some crazy hammers in that Great Lakes division,
like
up
legends
north.
Of like those guys for fishing.
Yeah, those guys are phenomenal. I think he had a top 5, I want to say, in one of them this year, and then qualified for the regional, which was his goal because it was here in the Quad Cities, pools 17 through 13, and he goes out and gets second
place,
the best guys, second place,
best dudes around.
The best guys in the whole region. I want to say it was like 140 something boats that qualified for the regional. He goes out and gets second place, qualifies for the All-American, which is probably next to the Classic, probably one of the most prestigious tournaments in the country. Like just humble dude, like just crazy. That was awesome.
Yeah. And it was cool as we kind of went on. He kind of got a little more, you could tell he got a little more comfy and kind of stood on some stuff that he believed in, like, you know, being against the negative talk and talking specifics on frogs. And that was a weird one for me to hear that he bends the hooks in on his frogs. That's a weird one for me because I feel like 90% of the planet bends the frog hooks up a little bit or out a little bit, and almost the exact opposite of what he said. Like, you want to run your finger across the back of the frog and you want to kind of catch it a little bit, and that, you know, logically makes sense that you get better hook penetration that way. I don't always do it, but I do absolutely do that sometimes. And Adam's like, no, I bend them in. Oh, okay. Well, a guy who's won many Spro only frog tournaments, he talks, I'm going to listen. I mean, straight up, I'm going to listen. Because he is right too, man. Everybody who's throwing a frog around like thick stuff or around lily pads or whatever, when you get one lodged into like the cane, like the stalk of a lily pad, it's the worst. It's the freaking worst. And you can't get it out. And apparently lily pads are made of some sort of weird titanium thread. So frustrating. So to bend them in, you get less of that, and you're still catching fish, obviously, because that's what he does.
That's exactly it. Yeah, he's the guy that like you said, when he talks, you listen. Especially if you're gonna be fishing in our area and really fishing anywhere. Like he is a knowledgeable cat who I am very appreciative for coming on the show and giving us the goods.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's always cool to talk to somebody who has done some things that you want to do. You know, and I don't mean that necessarily like in an envious way, but like I would love to be a dude who has enough time to pre-fish and get experience and whatever, that when I show up at the ramp, people are like, shit. You know, like Jordan's here, dang it. Frick, Nate's here. Gosh, dog it. Exactly. Mike's here. John's here. Insert your name. Shoot, they're here. But you're still not a douchebag to them. You're not like that cocky guy, but they know that you're a hammer. And he's earned that, but he doesn't put that vibe out at all. Like, not only did he not brag on himself, he said that, you know, my goal was to qualify for the regional, which I did. He didn't say anything about it. I took second in the regional, which is crazy. And that was an interesting regional too, like a way that the fish were released and where guys ran and where guys didn't run. And I mean, there was a lot of weird factors there. So to finish second, I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, everybody, you know, has that goal to, you know, compete at a higher level tournament, you know, on their home body of water, you know, yada, yada, yada. But that's a lot of pressure to live up to, you know, it really is.
A lot of pressure.
You know, you know, you're that guy in this area. So you have this pressure on you, like, oh, he should definitely catch him. And, you know, he knows that, you know, people talked about it from first blast off, like, oh, Adam's one of those guys you definitely should watch out for and be able to live up to that and you know, just catch him. And man, that was awesome. It was fun talking to him too about the day he had on the water and you know, the fish catches he had. I want to say was it the final day? I want to say it was the final day of weigh-in for that BFL regional. He took a crankbait to the face.
Oh yeah, I forgot to ask him about that. Dang it.
He took a crankbait. Yeah, I don't know how I forgot it either, but he took a crankbait
like into his mouth, right?
And had to
like on his upper lip.
He said he attempted the braid trick like multiple times and couldn't get it, obviously, because, you know, so much loose tissue on your lip and whatnot.
Yeah, like, it's not like a hand.
Exactly. So he fished like a half or 3/4 of his day with a hook like in his mouth, in his lip. He was at the weigh-in, you know, talking at the weigh-in, you know, weighing his fish in on the final day with a hook in his face, like just crazy.
DT in the face, but in the face of an angler. Yeah, that's not a good day. But yeah, and also like that makes me feel I'm a pretty tough fella, you know, I like to think, at least. The thought of trying the braided line trick but not having it work multiple times in your face, that sounds freaking awful.
Yeah,
that sounds awful.
Yeah, I can just imagine like the tears like rolling.
I mean,
like
dude,
the sensitive area in your upper lip, nose, and you start to try to rip a hook out of there. Like,
it's I've done the braid trick myself. I had a pike one time spit a mag draft on me during a tournament. Excuse me, on Red Cedar Lake up here in Wisconsin. Pike absolutely annihilated a 6-inch mag draft. I set the hook and he spit it like as I'm setting it, and it went straight into my hand, like the base of my thumb. And I did the braid trick to myself, just to my thumb, and that was like a combination of scary and painful, you know. But it popped out first try. The braid trick in your mouth, on your lip, multiple tries, like no. Nope.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's bananas.
Yeah, adds to the legend status.
It adds to the it adds to the sort of like scariness of the dude. Like fished half the day with a treble in his face. That's stupid. Well, on that note, Nate, let's get out of here. That was an awesome podcast with an awesome guest. I really, really believe on that one. That's right up the alley of the people who are asking for a local like stick and you know, because he gave some great advice on how to kind of go to the next level and how to fish against top level competition. And I think I've shared this stat before, but Forbes magazine a long time ago put out the study of something like less than 1% of millionaires will ever become billionaires. And they found the number one reason why is because millionaires don't hang out with billionaires, you know, so their competition isn't there. Their mindset shift isn't there. And he nailed it. He's like, if you want to get better at fishing, fish against really good fishermen. You know, it's cool to fish local stuff and to fish with just your buddies. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, getting your teeth kicked in a few times is really good too. You know, forcing you up your game and be around billionaires, not just millionaires. And I think that was some really good advice from a guy who has lived it and walked through it. And I think probably could fish professionally if he wanted to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He's the guy who could really take it anywhere he wants. He's got the work ethic. He's got the time on the water, the knowledge that's going to translate to, you know, wherever he goes. So definitely a good cat. And man, like you said, a great podcast.
Great podcast. Duck fajitas. That's something I feel like I'd have to try.
That does sound really good. Yeah,
that does. I've always thought about the idea of giving up deer hunting because I'm so sick of sitting in the woods and freezing. This morning in the woods, it was 23 degrees, and I hunted for a couple hours. My feet, I have really good Under Armour hunting boots that are like, they have like a insulated like sock, almost like a snowboard boot, and then it's a BOA system, like that little clicky tie down thing, and they're really good. And my feet were frozen, my hands were frozen, my bow hanger had like a layer of frost across it. I mean, just miserable. And I'm like, this dude's in the freaking duck blind cooking steak and stuff. Like, what am I doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, why am I torturing myself?
We've definitely gone the wrong route, that's for sure.
Apparently. And then I could get a dog for my mom, you know, and we'd be set. But anyway, that's it, man. We appreciate Adam so much. We'll catch you on the next one. Positivity is indeed worth the effort. Bye-bye.
Peace.